Right, so we are the Ground Source team, and we'd like to start by thanking Andrew and Ezra at Ground Source for giving us this challenge. And we'd like to thank Alejandro, our mentor, for really pushing us and for being tons of fun along the way. So many of us here today work in newsrooms, and we know that one of the most important things journalists can do is build authentic, trusting relationships with their communities. But that starts to feel really difficult when we're drowning in online comments and we're trying to crack the latest social media algorithm just to reach people. But wow, wouldn't it be great if reaching our audiences and building those important relationships were just as easy and as direct as texting? Well, that's what Ground Source does best. And to give you a taste for the kind of things that Ground Source can do, we're going to kick this presentation off with some audience engagement. So we have this jar full of M&Ms here. And we want you to take your best guess at how many M&Ms are in that jar. And we'd like you to text 1-573-880-4358 with the keyword guess, and then the number of M&Ms you think are in that jar. And if your guess is the winner, if it gets the closest to the actual number of M&Ms in the jar, you get to take that baby home with you today. So if you're the winner, we'll text you after this presentation, and then you get your nice little candy. So we'll give you a second to get out your phones and to text us.
So, all right. Let me take a second to introduce our team. My name is Danny. This is Camila, Shashwat, and Michaela. We are 4 students from actually 4 different countries. We have diverse background and skills. So you guys already saw a very, very simple demo about the Ground Source. You can use a very simple way, as Michaela showed. So what Ground Source is and how it can set apart with different other competitors. Ground Source is actually a platform which provides an engagement tool for companies and organizations to get engaged with their audience, not only by sending them messages, but also hearing back from them. So this is a value proposition after we did market research for potential competitors in the market. And you can see from here, Ground Source has a potentially lower price and also in the two-way message market, which gave it a competitive edge to dominate in this market and potentially gain more market share in the next few years. So what can Ground Source use in the real case, not just this candy thing? Actually, in 2015, ProPublic, which is a nonprofit investigating organization, it did a rent racket investigation in the New York neighborhood, which they wanted to investigate the gentrifications in their neighborhood and asked the resident to send pictures, stories, and their opinions to the Ground Source, which collects the information from the residents, which they couldn't get in any other ways, which help them to push the story forward and get as many as feedback from the residents, which really help to make the news more helpful than any other ways.
So as you can see, Ground Source proven to be successful in journalism. So the objective for our team was to transfer that success to a new vertical and come up with recommendations on how to enter those market segments. So in order to do that, we came up with a methodology. We started with extensive secondary research. We also conducted interview with industry experts, as well as did a survey with non-customers and current Ground Source customers. From there, looking at all the data, we came up with 10 criteria that we found most important, and then ranked each of them from 1 to 3, 3 being the highest. And the top 3 winners were education, government, and nonprofit. All 3 of them proved to have this need for continuous feedback. They also have very strong building communities, and they align with Ground Source values. They are committed to the social good. They also have this readiness to implement and readiness to spend. And now we're going to kind of dive deep into each vertical.
First up, we have education. So when I was in elementary school, my teachers would send home these paper notes that I was supposed to deliver to my parents. And probably once a month or so, my mom would be cleaning out my backpack, and she'd find about 4 or 5 of those crumpled up at the very bottom. Well, the reality is that a lot of schools still rely on kids, on students, to communicate and accurately explain what's going on at school, their academic performance, to their parents. And we know that, moral of the story, kids are not always the most effective middlemen. So this is causing some real problems. Even schools that give parents access to an online portal where they can view their child's grades tend to notice that many parents don't check it very frequently, and some don't even check it at all. And so this is causing some real disconnects between schools and parents and their children's education. Ultimately, parents tend to overestimate their child's grades and underestimate their child's missed assignments. So this disconnect is having really tangible effects on children's education. And so researchers at Columbia University wanted to know what would happen if parents started receiving text notifications whenever their children missed an assignment or whenever they skipped a class. So they did this kind of rough experiment in the 2015-2016 school year, and they built an ad hoc SMS platform that could connect to the school's gradebooks, and it would text parents whenever a child was about to fail a class or whenever they would miss an assignment. And what they noticed was pretty amazing. The 22 middle and high schools that tried texting parents noticed a 39% reduction in course failures that year and a 17% uptick in class attendance. So we talked to Ann O'Brien, who's the Deputy Director of the Learning First Alliance, and we wanted to get some perspective on this. And she told us that the role a family plays in a child's education is well researched, it's well known, but the trouble with it is that schools previously thought that it's difficult to influence a family and the role a family plays in a child's education because it's thought to be controlled by things that the school has no control over, such as the family's income. But this recent experiment from Columbia University shows that maybe parents just need a little nudge, and maybe text messaging is the perfect medium for that nudge to happen. And so Ann told us that lots of schools are interested in doing this kind of thing that can empower parents to be more involved and to take a more active role in their child's education. And schools are looking for ways to do this. So with that, our use cases. We believe that K through 12 schools stand to benefit quite a bit from doing just the kind of thing that Columbia University recently tested out in this past February. So we believe that texting parents about missed assignments, just basic updates at school, is a really great application. But then more than that, GroundSource is really great at collecting and organizing feedback from communities. It's a listening tool. So we think GroundSource could really help schools learn a little bit about the families and the students who attend school there. So there's a lot of information that a school could benefit from knowing, such as, has your kid mentioned being bullied at school? What kinds of things are your kids interested in outside of school? What do they do when they come home? Those are things that that's information that a school can take and apply to better serve those children in the classroom. And when we talked to Ann, she mentioned that sometimes school district budgets can be tight, and the best way for GroundSource to squeeze into that tight financial budget would be to show them that this tool can do something that they already know they need to be doing. So schools know that they need to be able to contact parents in the case of an emergency like a tornado. So GroundSource can easily be a tool for those schools to text parents when something like that occurs. But GroundSource can position itself as a tool that can not only do what they know they need to be doing, but it can do all of this and more, and to be able to empower and engage parents in their communities.
So in the same education segment, we also did research for the higher education, apart from the K-12, because we believe higher education also provide some customers different from K-12, and they have different demand. So according to the research provided by Mobile Comment, which is another player in the market, Bowling Green State University had a research for their local students. 54% student reply said they are less likely to use email, and they believe there is a disconnection between them and the school. And 98% of their student has the mobile phone, and they would like to use the message to communicate with the campus and the community. So in this case, we believe GroundSource can create a bridge to engage with the school and the campus with students. So we actually went to the International Center and we interviewed the Usha. She is the director of the international admission. She told us that international student has a big problem for communicate with the local student and the campus because the language can be a very big challenge. I can use my example. I came here in 2012 as an international student, and the first year to me was horrible because I feel like communicating with other people is a big challenge using the Sankey language and in the different environment. And the most terrible thing is when I talk with somebody, I cannot reply very easily because I never know what kind of question they're going to ask me. I can prepare anything I wanted to say at home, but I cannot prepare what they're going to ask me. So if I can have a great ground source as a tool for me to communicate with them while the text message, I think it's much better, and I can ask any questions and get feedback directly, and I can get notifications for the activities, which can help the international community to connect with the campus. So there are several useful cases for the higher education as well. The first, we focus on the current and prospective students, alumni, and parents. We value their feedback, and if we can get their feedback directly, it can help the school to solve the problem easily and also engage with the campus. And also for students, they can get some important tips and tools for some department. For example, the dining hall, which one is the best, and the residence hall, and which one can be their best choice for the next semester.
Another segment that ranked very high in our methodology, and we would recommend GroundSource to pursue that market, is government and civic engagement. Imagine if each citizen could text in to the public transport department about what time they could require a bus outside their house. It would improve the public transportation system. We found from a study by Pew Research Center that 97% of Americans, they text at least once weekly, and almost 99% text messages are read instantly. And another study said that 92% of Americans earning less than $30,000 a year have access to cell phones, which provides them a tool to more democratically connect with their government using GroundSource. It would also allow the government to reach out to people who are otherwise not able to be reached by social media or any other app that requires internet. A study by Mobile Commons in 2014, along with DoSomething.org, showed that young people texted to President Obama with their questions regarding student debt, which is a very big issue for American students. And more than 80,000 people received a reply back from President Obama. This made the students feel that they are being heard by the government, and also helped the government gauge the situation from the ground level. To reinforce our faith in this segment, we spoke to a number of industry experts. And Dr. Jacob Hasselward, an assistant professor of the Public Policy and Administration Department, he said that even though that elected officials do not always do what people want them to be able to do, but they definitely want to portray themselves as someone who's listening to their community, to their constituency. Some use cases that we thought were very important in civic engagement was GroundSource being able to connect the government officials with community activists constantly, so that they're able to understand the problems and situations within the community at a constant level. It would also help connect all the elected officials with their constituencies, and this would create a system to listen to the issues of the community in a constant manner and be able to propose solutions for both short-term and long-term problems.
So the third vertical that we are suggesting for GroundSource to pursue is nonprofit. There was an interesting study in 2017 when they asked nonprofits how effective are the tools that they're using. And 29% that text messaging was very effective. It ranked higher than Facebook, email updates, blogging, and Twitter. And from there, you can see that nonprofits are interested in this new tool, and they are finding it very effective. So GroundSource actually dipped their toes into the nonprofit market already. They partnered with Baykeeper, an environmental nonprofit in New York and New Jersey, and sent out these micro newsletters to their audience. And 20%, they got a 20% response rate in their first SMS message. And what 20% might sound not that high, but let's think about email newsletters and how many do we get every day? And do we want more email newsletters? Do we actually read all of them? No, and how often do we actually prompt to respond and communicate and engage in this conversation? So text messaging can give you this tool of giving the short ideas, short information that's easily digestible and prompts you to continue this conversation. We also talked to Dr. Mariah Kim here at the University of Missouri, and she said that, of course, nonprofits want to engage with their audience. They want to connect with their audience. But what often lacks for them is human resources and this capacity to create this content. And that's where GroundSource can come in, because GroundSource has this added value of Andrew Haig, the founder. He is a veteran journalist and engagement. He can really consult and help each nonprofit to get the best results possible, to craft their messages and really engage with the audience. And then for nonprofit use cases, again, you want to engage with donors. You want to let them know actual tangible impact of their donations. You also want to educate the audience. You want to let them know what's happening in your community. You want to invite them to donate and to volunteer. You also want to get this feedback, because GroundSource is not just text blasting, it's getting the replies. You want to know what people are caring about, and you want to know if they have this great ideas of how to really push your mission forward.
So we've seen how GroundSource works, why it is important, and also seen the segments that we want to enter into. But where do we start from? Where do we take the small startup to a level where it sees sustainable growth? We started by setting a practical target of acquiring 8 customers every year, 2 from the non-profit sector, 3 from government, and 3 from education. To do that, we recommend Andrew and his team to create educational videos, informational videos that can help users to learn what GroundSource can do and how it can be used. Through digital marketing, we intend to do that. Next up, we recommend that Andrew take up his existing journalism expertise and connections and leverage it to connect with the different sectors by going to trade shows, getting to connect with people at trade shows, because that's the place where maximum relevant information about the industry is being discussed. And that's where GroundSource can push themselves into these markets by showing them how important and how useful GroundSource can be. To be able to do that, we factored in all the costs involved, since GroundSource is a startup, and we did not just focus on just the execution plan or the marketing plan that we wanted to take up. We factored in all the costs involved with it, including the conference cost that it would take. And well, we can see that the highest cost for this project would be the salaries involved. And it also has a variable cost associated with it, which is the texting tool, the texting medium that it's going to use. And it depends on the sector that it's going to cater to, how many people use it within that sector, and we figured that government and education require a lot more people involved, a lot more people texting in, which would eventually raise the cost for that. So on an average, we take about $1,200 per customer. That's the variable cost that we factored in. But now we know what it takes, how much it takes to get to the plan. But how much will it make once we execute that plan? GroundSource has in its business model, it has 2 different fees associated with it. One is a one-time onboarding fee for a customer, which again varies with the usage of that sector. And another one is the subscription fee, which is a monthly fee that the customer has to pay to remain on board. With that, we see that in the initial first 2 years, we don't break even, but we all know that there is no overnight success, and and the study says that it takes about 10 years before an overnight success happens. And this is where, in the first 2 years, we don't make as much revenue, but with increasing customers to 26, we break even by 2019. And from there on, we grow at a steady rate of 13%. And you can see that, as per the trend, that it grows beyond 2020. The revenue grows faster than the expenses.
Okay, time now for questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned some of your competitors, like at the beginning, and I wasn't sure if you did that kind of based on the journalism market, but then did you look at, education? Sorry, did you look at, education, government? Did you look at competitors within those areas?
So what we found when we looked at the competitors is that most of the competitors are actually not focusing on one niche market, but expanding. They're looking at education, nonprofit, religious institution, e-commerce. So, it's a trend. I think GroundSource is one of the only ones who are only focusing on one industry right now.
So how scalable is this? I mean, as they take on new customers, are they going to have to hire new employees? And just curious on the scalability.
Yes, in our consideration of the cost, we factored in that once we started acquiring customers, by the second year we ramped up the staff, and we accounted for more costs beyond that. And well, eventually it is like one set of staff which can handle up to 50 customers, and then it grows in those levels. So yes, it is scalable. It is it is profitable eventually, even with increasing customers and increasing the number of people in the company. Yes.
The fact that you have 3 different sectors that you think they should concentrate on, rather than identifying one particular market where you think they could dominate, it seems like that's going to dilute their message, having to know how these different sectors interact. So maybe you could explain that again. Maybe I think you explained a little bit there, but and also that onboarding fee seems steep. Is there any research, or would you conduct any research to actually see if people would pay that, such as even setting up an experiment to see if they would buy that now?
Yes, to answer your second question first, yes, the customers, the onboarding fee is we studied that all the competitors have a much higher price than GroundSource, and people are paying that amount to stay engaged with their community. And ours is, and GroundSource is priced slightly lesser than the competitive market, and which is, $10,000 for as a one-time onboarding fee for a hospital probably would not be as big as we may think. It is catering to a large group of patients, large group of customers, so it does factor in their eventual profit as well. Yes.
And their pricing model can be scalable depending on, like Shashwat said, the size of the audience that this organization needs to connect with. But in recommending the 3 different verticals, we believe that because we've been looking into GroundSource's competitors, and they do each serve several different verticals at once, ultimately GroundSource is a listening tool, and it's not just a tool for journalists, it's a tool for building communities. And we believe that these 3 verticals are industries that have communities that GroundSource can serve. So they're ultimately serving the same message. It's all about creating GroundSource's brand around building community, rather than we're just a journalism company or we're just an education company. And so we thought that these disconnects in these industries were the most relevant and the most important to be, like, these industries recognize that they have these disconnects, and they are actively trying to solve them. And so we believe that GroundSource has a great opportunity to step in and do that.
And it also is that GroundSource, these 3 segments, when we recommend to enter, it is considering what features and what tools that has already been developed on the platform of GroundSource. Eventually, when we go to like different segments like retail or fitness, it would require a few more added features to be added or built on it. So it is an eventual process, and gradually it would be able to cater to almost all the different segments.
If I could, kind of going off of that, like a school isn't a customer. The customer is like a person. So within those, who the most likely like feels the pain and has the ability to make the decision to write that check, and then, yeah, I guess that's.
In schools specifically, or just?
Kind of off of Scott's question, if you had to pick one, what's your best market, you think?
University.
Probably education, I would say, because there has been such steady research on texting, the role of texting in schools, and nobody's really serving that yet. There's a clear evidence that there is a market for this. This is effective, and because schools want to get families involved, they've wanted to do this for a long time. They just don't know how. If you can show them that you're going to increase your parental involvement in your kids' education, and your kids are going to skip class less, and there's the potential for less missed assignments, and you're going to get your parents to talk more to their kids about their education. I think that's a pretty compelling. We think that's a pretty compelling argument for Ground Source to make to schools as to why you should want to purchase this.
And who would you talk to?
Parents, like,
They're buying
or school administration, school district.
I guess I'm curious, there were a lot of competitors, so how is Ground Source going to be any better than all the other competitors in the landscape? I don't know that I agree with that.
I think the main value for Ground Source is the two-way text messaging, and there's a lot of cool features they have that some other competitors don't. A lot of the competitors that you saw are not focusing on two-way messaging marketing. They're focusing on this text blasting, like, hey, like, here's a discount, here's this, and they don't require for you to respond. They don't have the capabilities to actually have to respond. And through Ground Source, you can do surveys, you can actually send videos, you can send photos. There's so much more that Ground Source can provide for the customers.
In addition to all of that, it also provides a dashboard in the back end, which allows the customer to better sort their data and do an analytics on the data as well eventually. So that's what is also an added feature to the customer, which they don't. Which is not the direct value, but they get to see that as well.
This is probably beyond your control, but it always makes me nervous when a startup has a commodity strategy and that we're the cheapest, because that's the easiest to compete against. And then it looks like you had built it on top of Twilio, or they have. So that means, we've had students here build a text platform on top of Twilio in a weekend. So I'm just, curious. It sounds like there's more behind that, but I wasn't quite sure kind of what's the secret sauce.
So I would say the secret sauce is being able to collect and organize feedback. So it's not only being able to send information to your community, it's being able to really receive it and be able to leverage that information well. So Ground Source's secret sauce is more in being able to listen. And it's also, it also definitely benefits from the kind of consulting services that its founder, Andrew Haig, offers. He's an expert engagement journalist, and he knows how can you use this. This tool is so, it's so applicable for so many different things. There's so many different use cases, and they're discovering new ways to use it every day. So he's really great at being able to look at what an organization does and being able to tell how this tool can adapt to that and what it can do best within a specific organization. So some of the secret sauce definitely lies with him and his expertise.